Corso and Catone.
I think well, listen, Mark, listen, hold on. When I say, would you have caffeine today?
What the hell is that up to then?
Presented by Special Sauce Podcast, Studio 42 Design, and Corso Law Group. Now for the real deal New England feel, Corso and Catone.
Welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone is here. Joe is in the booth. You're with us watching on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you podcast. You can definitely hear us, and you can listen to us live on Podbean as well. And, of course, call us on our heated hotline, 855-313-PATS, 24/7. Leave us a message. Next week, we're going to start bringing back the heated hotline and getting you people on. We've got a lot of messages in the queue that we need to get back up and going, and we want to choose yours. So 855-313. So I'm sorry, 7287. I'm laughing because Mark coming on the show before the show, I can see him, and he's making all these stupid gestures and antics, Joe, at me. You know, just trying to. He likes to, Mark. You like to try to throw me off, don't you?
Well, hey, you know, it's a season wrap-up show.
Yeah, and that is what this is today. So we're going to be bringing in the Pats Nation for our season wrap-up, and we're going to include, Mac Mania. We're going to talk our quarterback room. We're going to talk offense, defense, and in Coach's Corner, we're going to focus on what coaches we should be bringing back specifically. So stick around for that. That's later on in the show.
Zero, none, zero.
So that's it. Show's over. Thanks for joining us. You know, and we're all done. And we're also going to talk about the ownership role in this, Kraft's relationship with Belichick, this meeting that took place. So all of that's going to be on this packed show. And gentlemen, have you had a good opportunity to absorb and, come to terms with the fact that the season's over, Mark?
That's why I'm in a black. I'm in mourning. Come on.
Has nothing to do with the New Year's
resolution. You know what? We knew like 5 weeks ago the season was over. Well, at least you knew. You said they probably will not win another game, and you were almost right.
Yeah, they won two more. I was surprised that they did.
Yeah,
they beat Arizona and they beat Miami. So
and I don't know if they would have won those games if the two quarterbacks for those two teams didn't get hurt.
It's a good point. Would have been better off anyway, because right now they're picking 14th in the draft. They could have probably
have a better draft position if we lost
the top 10, maybe. Yeah. So, well, look, we're going to discuss all of that and more. So, Joe, let's bring in the Pats Nation.
Are you ready for the Pats Nation? The only real deal Patriots postgame show. And now, Corso and Catone.
Welcome into the Pats Nation, the only Patriots post-game show, and in this case, review worth watching. Mark, Chris, Joe, everybody pay attention because we have a lot to get to, as I already mentioned. But, before we start, I was going to talk about this in Coach's Corner. But since this meeting just happened, I want to talk about Kraft. Let's talk about Kraft, Belichick, this dynamic, and what took place in this meeting. So for those of you who don't know, typically when the season ends, Kraft and Belichick sit down and talk, and that's usually within a day of the season ending, typically. And so that meeting is taking place, and this is from Tommy Curran, real reliable source, good knowledge on the Patriots.
He's got the pulse over there. He gets information from there. Yeah,
for sure. And he said that he was told that the meeting happened. There was no impasse. Don't expect a dog and pony show announcing fingers or who's coming in for an interview. Belichick isn't going to put anyone's head on a spike for the pleasure of the masses. But Tom's understanding is that offensive coaching reassignments are going to happen, and several offensive coaches are under consideration for the Patriots 2023 staff. I think he must mean like outside coaches coming in. He also goes on to say one important facet of the meeting: did Belichick need persuading to change the course of offense, or did he go in knowing changes were necessary? And Tom Curran's understanding is that no persuading on the part of the Krafts was necessary, Mark. So what do you make of this meeting and the report of what came out of the meeting?
Well, I found it a couple things. I found it interesting that Belichick, I believe, the morning after the Bills game, I'm assuming he hadn't had a chance to meet with Mr. Kraft yet at that point, announces to everybody, I'll be back for the next season, and I'm looking forward to. So he obviously didn't think his job was any jeopardy, right?
A bold
Obviously.
statement.
That's a bold statement, right? So that's the first thing that I found interesting. But, well, Chris, listen, I think he's smart enough to understand for his longevity, and as long as he's been there, that he knows the offense is a problem. I mean, it's been highly publicized. What's he going to walk in there and say? No, I disagree. The offense wasn't bad, or Patricia knows what he's doing. I mean, there was no way he could even defend that. But listen, those were his coaches he brought in. He put these bozos when everybody knew, Chris, it wasn't going to work. I think he got off easy with Kraft. The fact that you still got a job, A, B, it seems like you still have a bunch of control, and you brought in these complete morons for offensive coaches.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the persuade. He needs to be persuaded. And yeah, that was a huge concern. Would Belichick realize that's happened? Look, to me, when I read something like that, or when I see something like that, that tells me that, he's not going to give us the satisfaction. He's not going to give the media. He's not going to give the fans. He's not going to give anybody satisfaction of basically saying, hey, this is my bad. I got one person to answer to, and that's the guy I'm going to sit down and talk to and say that, that I was bad. But you know what? Going into that meeting, and I found that interesting too, that he basically was bold enough, and I guess if there's anybody who can be, maybe it is Belichick, that I will be back next year. Now, look, I don't know what his contract situation. Maybe he just assumes until I'm told differently, I'm still on the contract, I'm coming back. Could be as simple as that, but nothing's ever as simple as that with these guys. But I'll tell you this, it had to have ruffled feathers, in my opinion, because directly, usually, and I'm a season ticket holder, okay? So I'm going to read to you the letter that they keep referring to, because here it is right here.
Oh, you got it. Okay, good.
I got this letter from them.
What, do they email it to everyone, all the season ticket holders?
They email it. Yeah, they email the season ticket. Now, I don't get we usually don't get this letter, recapping the season until sometime in February. That's usually when you get this. This thing came in January 9th. Okay. This was Monday. This was the day after.
Wow.
Okay. The end of the season. And basically what it says is, "Dear Chris," like they know me. Unfortunately, our season has ended sooner than we hoped yesterday afternoon in Buffalo. While we always want to be playing games in the playoff with implications in week 18, our expectation was to perform better throughout the season and to advance through the playoffs. We can assure you that no one in our organization is satisfied with the results from this past season. Now, this is before talking to Belichick. So he's talking about them. They're not satisfied. He doesn't know what Belichick's thought is. In the weeks ahead, we'll be making critical evaluations of all elements of our football operation, and we strive to improve and return to the playoffs next year. We welcome you back, so on and so forth. Features to Gillette Stadium and everything. So, this thing came out of his office immediately, and it's well thought out, and it's definitely, I took that as a shot across the bow before he got into that. Mark, the timing of that has to be important before he gets into the meeting with Belichick.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, absolutely. Everybody thought, well, here's the thing, Chris. Everybody thought last year he put Belichick on warning when he said, I'm not satisfied. We expect to win playoff games, and of course they didn't. Well, now this year you regressed. You won less games, and you didn't even make the playoffs. So how could he be happy, right? How could he be happy? But then if you listen this week, Chris, to more reporting from guys that I think are in the know of what's going on in there, guys like Phil Perry and guys like that, they're thinking Kraft's going to let him stay here until he breaks Schuler's record. And at that point, it'll be, Bill, you broke the record. We're not going anywhere. We haven't improved. Now you're retiring. I'm not firing you. Now you're gone, and I'm redoing this. They think that he'll give him that leeway because of everything he's done here. And if that's the case, Chris, I totally disagree with that.
Well, because it's going to take another 2 to 3 seasons. So now you're going to be going on 5 to 6 years of if that's the motivation.
I don't know if that's true, but if it's being reported, there's got to be a little bit of truth to it, or there had to have been that conversation. Unless things really bottom out and Kraft says, listen, this is a disaster. I can't let you stick around to try to break the record. You got to retire. I don't know. I mean, maybe things get that bad. I don't know.
Now, you listen to what Belichick said on Monday, too, and he started talking about the spending, okay? So he comes out and says basically, he gives the whole, over the aggregate, over the 3 years, where 20, basically, and he knows the stats. He's a guy who says the stats aren't important. He knows the stats. He said we're 27th in the league in spending now.
But first in the league in spending on the head coach. First.
Right. Exactly. Well, here's the thing. You say something like that. Now, I don't believe he was taking a shot at the Crafts. I think he was defending his position in the years they do it and how he spent, how they do it. But saying we're 27th, the Crafts don't want that kind of statement made by their head coach, especially after a crap season like this, number one. And two, he comes back out the following day, he tried
to clarify what he said. Like, in other words, you took it the wrong way.
Yeah, he acts like the reporter came to him, but he sought somebody out because he realized what the hell he said. And that tells me, that backs up Curran's view and what happened in that meeting, because him correcting himself basically is tail between the legs a little. You know what I mean? Head between the leg, whatever that called.
A little bit.
You know what I mean? Going into that meeting, you knows he's at fault. So he's not going to get. Hey, listen, if you're the Crafts, you're going to say, "Hey, you know what? You want to bust our chops about spending? Okay, yeah, okay. You drafted like shit. You drafted like shit for the last 5 years. You want to bust our chops about spending? We can't spend on guys that suck. I'm not going to extend these guys that you keep drafting and they're terrible. Well, why?
Yeah."
I mean, Mark, go through the list. Is there anybody on this free agent list that you see that's worth Nelson Aguilar, Myers, Damian Harris, Jonathan Jones, McCourty, Peppers, Wynn, Slater, Carl Davis, McMillan, Wilson? Anybody on that list that you must have back?
Nope. No. I think they'll let Myers see what he's worth, Chris, because I don't think the wide receiver free agent market is that good. Myers may get some money out there, and I think at that point you just let him go. What are you going to do? I mean, you should be able to, be able to find wide receivers in the draft, but of course we can't.
Yeah. I mean, possession receivers you can find. He's a number 3, so I agree with you how they'll handle him. The only other guy on that list is maybe Jonathan Jones, but you're not going to pay him. You didn't pay Jackson. You're not going to pay him.
No. If he's looking for big money, he's gone.
So if he's talking about 27th the league in spending, that all matters about who you extend and who you give contracts to at the end of the and there's nobody worth extending on this team. And that's a direct result of how poorly. And on top of it, Mark, they paid, they're down in the league in spending because they pay nothing for the quarterback.
That's true, because you got a quarterback on a rookie deal.
Therefore, the team should be a hell of a lot better than they are because of that reason. That's the whole point, is so you can spend on good players. Their evaluation sucks. And the evaluation of Mac Jones in the quarterback room, right? I don't know how Kraft looks at him.
I don't know, Chris,
now,
interestingly enough, what came out of some of these meetings this week is Mac Jones is calling around the league asking, how do I fix this? Like, he went outside of Belichick's circle. I don't know if that's true. If it's true, Belichick had to be livid, absolutely livid.
Well, you know what? I don't blame him. And we're going to talk Mac Jones, and we're going to get into the quarterback room right now in Mac Mania. Joe?
Mac Mania!
The season, Okay, he threw for 3,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, 11 picks, QBR rating of 35.9. Not a good year, Mark.
What, 35.9?
Yeah, QBR rating, 28th in the league. 28th in the league. He's tied for 22nd in interceptions, tied for 23rd in touchdowns, and he's 18th in yards. 15th pick in the draft. Okay. So
okay.
So, is it him? Is it the system? Does he get another chance? Let's talk about this quarterback room, and we'll start with Mac Jones.
Well, I made the statement 2 weeks ago to you that I didn't think he was the guy after watching that game. Could I have been a little too harsh? And now that I've had a chance to take a step and reflect.
Oh, you? Never.
Right? But maybe. I don't know, Chris. I don't necessarily know if we can really estimate how much the bad coaching affected him. I don't know if we can quantify it. So I think you're going to have to give him another year under hopefully a real offensive coordinator, a real system, and see what happens. I don't think you can pull a plug on him yet unless number 12 walks in the door again and you say, okay, Mac, you're going to sit and watch him for 2 years and then we'll evaluate you. But here's our man. And I don't think that's happening. I think that's fantasy. I think people have brought that up. You have floated that idea, Chris. I think it's a fantasy because I don't think Belichick would ever swallow his pride and allow that to happen. So I think you got to give the kid another year, Chris. I mean, people are saying, we'll bring in Jimmy Garoppolo and see who earns the job.
Yeah.
I don't know if you do that. I think because Garoppolo's going to want a little bit of money. I think you got to give the kid a year with real coaching on that side of the ball, and then you're going to make your decision. It's either make or break for him. Either you're the guy or you're not, and we're going to have to move on from you. This is it.
Yeah, I mean, look, and one of the problems here is we don't know what Belichick or Kraft think of this kid. I mean, when asked about Mac Jones earlier this week, that
was an interesting comment, wasn't it?
It really was, and because he basically said, "Look, it starts with what pisses me off about him a little bit is earlier in the season he said, "Look, I put these people in place, so if it doesn't work, it's on me." Well, that's fine. You said that he said that in the offseason, but I have not seen him own it yet. You didn't back up your words, Bill, when you said it's on you. So basically, the buck stops here because in his post game and the next day,
Chris, paraphrase. Tell the viewers what he said because I thought it was very interesting.
He basically said he has the ability to play in this league, which to me kind of hangs him out. I don't know what that means.
It does hang him out, Chris, because he doesn't say he's got the ability to play in this league. He's our quarterback. Never said that. Never said he's our quarterback.
Joe's got the ability to produce a show, somewhere in broadcasting. I mean, is that a ringing endorsement, Joe? for you? You coming away feeling touchy-feely good?
You might as well just say the same thing that I'm going to be the quarterback next year. So, Joe,
that was kind of a little bit of a shot, I think, at him, and maybe it was a way to try to motivate him. I don't know, Chris, but I don't think that was a ringing endorsement of Mac Jones at all.
No, and he never owns it himself. It starts with me. We all need to this. We all need. Do we all need?
Who's this Mac Jones?
Bill.
Oh, Bill. Yeah.
Belichick. We all need. No, Mac Jones. I found his comments after the game also intriguing, and I don't know if anybody. I've heard this all week long, but you tell me what you think. He basically says, "I learned a lot about football this year."
He learned a lot about bad coaching.
He says nothing about the coaching. He talks about the locker room. He talks about the players. But when he says, I learned a lot about football, is he talking about the game? Because we know he learned nothing on the field about football. Or is he talking about the business of football?
Good question.
Good. Wow. That's a real good question. I'm impressed.
You should be impressed. I'm telling you, right? That's what these
Chris,
are for.
I don't think. Oh, he's going to take out the rock skin glasses.
We haven't gotten there yet.
No.
But what do you make of that?
Chris, I'm going to be honest with you. I think he's talking about the business of football. Yeah. I think he's talking, Zappy was in for a little bit. I think Belichick played head games with them. I think he was hung out to dry a few times. Yeah, it was a real interesting comment, Chris. And I wouldn't, it wouldn't shock me. Well, yeah, I guess it would shock me. I mean, do you think this kid would have the balls to go to Belichick and say, I want to be traded?
In this day and age, players being what they are, people in this being what they are, no, I don't put it past them to do that at all.
I think he'll wait to see who the OC is. If Belichick ever kept Patricia as OC, which we know he's not, but if hypothetically that ever happened, I think this kid would go to him and say, I want to be traded. I don't think there's any way this kid would come back and play for those coaches again, those offensive coaches. I just don't think that would happen.
No, because he's marketable. He's marketable because he comes from a great system. He comes from Alabama, and everybody in the league is going to give him a pass this year.
I was going to say that. He's got one more pass, Chris. That's it. This offseason's his last pass. If he doesn't do it next year, then I don't think he's got that marketability. But right now, you're right. He's still marketable to somebody.
Yeah, I give him a pass too. I kept going back and forth on it, but I'm giving him not a pass, but I'm giving him the opportunity. Get him let's compare apples to apples. Get him a real coach. Get him a real weapon. And then let's see. Get him an offensive line, and let's see.
We're talking about the quarterback room. So what do you think of Zappe?
I mean, I think Zappe is what he is. I think he's a backup quarterback. I think you have to simplify the offense for him.
A backup quarterback that you raced to the 4th round draft pick on when there was athletes all over the board at that time.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And that's who I think Zappe is.
Okay, and then my son.
I don't think he's a Purdy.
Okay. So I was talking to my son this week, and he had an interesting take on this quarterback room, and he said, why wouldn't Brady come back here? I said, because Belichick would never swallow his pride and allow it. And he said to me, but you don't know what the conversation was in that locker room the night Tampa Bay came here. Maybe he swallowed his pride in private and said, I screwed up. And if that happened, maybe 12 would be amendable to finishing his career here if you made him paid him $35 million.
Which isn't
I don't think will happen, but that was my son's take.
It's what I want to see happen. And we need to get to the rest of the offense. But I listen, I'm telling you what, I want to see it happen, Mark. And the reason why I want to see people say, oh, you're nuts, you're crazy, whatever. You know why? Because Patriots become a hell of a lot more relevant again. They're on national TV. I don't care what anyone says. Brady still attracts.
Chris, you don't think they get 3 more wins if he was quarterbacking this year?
I do because he'd end up saying, Patricia, go stand over there like he did to Leftwich. I'm calling the plays now. And you're going to get guys that want to come. He'll get offensive linemen that want to come in. He'll get a Pace to come in here. And Brown, I forget his name. The tackle.
Maybe he gets the board. Maybe he gets the board and just a baseball cap and a nice audio earpiece, and he's coaching the front offense.
Yeah.
I don't see the negative in it. Trade Mac Jones, Mark. Trade Mac Jones. Get what you can get for him because, like you say, he's never more marketable than he is right now because everybody gives him a pass. Get what you want to get for him. If you want to go to San Fran and say, hey, we'll trade, give us Purdy. Put him on the bench. Put Brady there for a couple of years because I have firmly believe Brady's got 2 more good years left if he wanted. I believe it.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you. I just want to ask you: is this a natural sophomore slump for most quarterbacks, for Mac Jones, or is this all this stuff we're talking about with the coaching and all that stuff, or is it just a normal sophomore slump that he was in, and next year we have to give him that extra year just because of that?
I don't know if you would have saw this sophomore slump if McDaniels was still here, Chris.
Right. And that's
with this set of receivers, because you said at the beginning of the year, Chris, you thought this was an upgrade over last year's receiver room.
And I still believe that. And Joe, that's why it's a hard question to answer because there's too many ifs. There's just too many ifs to be able to answer that question with any degree of accuracy. You're not comparing apples to apples because you completely dismantled the coaching room from last year to this year.
Fair enough.
So that's a hard question to answer. So, but Mark, the players have hit Mac Jones back. They don't like how he was treated, and so looking at the rest of the offense, okay, and trying to evaluate what they did this season, Mark, you have to start with the offensive line, right?
That was a mess all year, Chris. A mess.
And so what do you do? Okay, so we know the issues
You
that we've
gotta
had all
okay. We
season
know
long.
the issues. You're gonna have to bring in some players. We get that, right? We understand that. But you also, Chris, need to bring in a real offensive line coach.
Yeah.
You don't have one.
Now, I have no problem with using the same coach for an offense. And when we get and stick around for Coach's Corner, because we're going to talk about the who in there. Right now we're mixing in coaching. We're talking about that now. But when we get to Coach's Corner, Mark and I are going to talk about who should be here. Who can we bring in?
You need offensive linemen, Chris. And I'm afraid you're afraid with that 14 pick, he's taking a tackle.
I know he's going to. I know he's going to take an offensive lineman. If Jefferson's, I don't care, Harrison. If Marvin Harrison's kid's out there from Ohio State,
he's not eligible for the draft. He's a true sophomore. He can't enter the draft yet.
He can't enter the draft yet. All right, so he wouldn't be there.
You're right,
anyway.
Chris. If he could, guess what?
If there's a good receiver there, it doesn't make a difference because he's going to take an offensive lineman. The two people you can look at in free agency right now, Orlando Brown. Okay, I think that he's 26. He's going to require a lot. He's a left tackle. He's going to require a lot of money. I mean, his average annual right now is $16 million.
He's given offensive lineman Chris money in free agency, so he's going to try to get guys that are maybe on their last contract and maybe they're a veteran, or like you said, Chris, he's going to take the 14th pick and he's going to take a tackle.
So you're talking about guys like George Fant. They came from the good Jets with an average annual of $9 million, something like that.
Yep, those are the types of guys he brings in.
Then you know what, Mark? You keep screwing around with the offensive line. But they paid Brown. I mean, they paid him. They brought him in. I mean, I have no problem paying Orlando. I'm talking about Trent Brown. I mean, I have no problem paying a guy like Orlando Brown.
They won't give him what he wants.
So, because you're fine at center, you're okay with Andrews, and I think Strange is going to be okay. I do.
I think he'll be okay. I just didn't like wasting that number pick on him, but I think he'll be okay.
And I'm okay with Owinu at the other tackle, at the other guard. Yeah. But you got to deal with your tackles. You're going to have to get that. So, it was poor play, but once again, not enough. How do you evaluate them based on what the hell the coaching room was like, too? So you gotta, you're right. You need a real offensive line coach that can work with these guys. And then
was the assistant offensive line coach? Is he capable? I don't know.
I don't know because I don't know how hands-on he actually was. I mean, there's just so many variables that we don't know when it comes to the coaching.
My guess is, Chris, he was more hands-on than we think because Patricia was wrapped up in the offense of being offensive coordinator. I don't really think he paid any attention to the offensive line.
Yeah. So let's skip over to the wide receivers. Look, in the running back room, I'm not paying.
I think the
Damian
running back
Harris.
room is fine. Listen, Damian Harris is going to leave, right? They're not going to sign. They're not going to give him big money. So if he gets an offer somewhere, he'll be gone. But you have Stevenson, the kid's strong, and that kid Harris, the rookie. Look, I think they'll be fine in the running back room, Chris. I still would like you to bring in somebody that can catch the ball out of the backfield.
Well, I think Marcus Jones can accomplish that too for them.
Yeah, he can.
They still have your friend on the team too, right?
But JJ Taylor's still on the practice squad, but they just don't use him.
Look, you know how I feel about running backs.
That's what I'm saying, Chris.
You can get them. You can get them. There's always a new guy every single year that emerges that you're like, where did he come from? So, but wide receiver, Mark, even the tight ends. I'm fine with what you have for tight ends. Hunter Henry. I don't think they use Jonnu Smith right. I don't think they use him right. I don't think when he touches the ball, he makes plays. He gets yards after the catch. Nothing was used right. But talk about the wide receiver room, Mark. That's your thing.
So the wide receiver room, you're going to probably lose Jacoby Myers, right? Because I think he'll get an offer from someone that you won't match.
And we can assume we're going to move on from Aguilar, right? He's going to be gone.
Or Aguilar. If you don't move on from him, I'll slit my wrist. They're going to move on from him. Jesus Christ.
Metaphorically, of course.
You want to put me metaphorically, you want to put me in the hospital? Now, but I do think, Chris, that they're going to, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if they'll pay the salary for, You know what? I got a brain freeze. The kid, number one, the kid that got the 2 touchdowns
Parker.
Sunday. Parker. I don't know if Devontae Parker, Chris, if they'll pay him. He's $6 million against the cap. They may try to renegotiate him. I don't know. I'd like to bring him back, but I don't know if they'll give him that money.
You're still moving
because he only plays 8 games a year.
Yeah, and look, and like you say, let's assume they lose Myers. Okay,
assume they lose Myers. So now in your wide receiver room, you have Thornton, Bourne, and Parker under contract.
I'll be honest with you, Mark. The only guy that I feel that you should and need to keep is Bourne.
Yes, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And you got that. They still got that kid Nixon on the practice squad, who showed a little bit of something in training camp. I don't know if he'll develop into anything. I don't know.
But once again, Mark, we're dealing with, we're dealing with second and third receiving, with talent receivers. And the problem, one of the problems is the free agent market isn't that great. I mean, the tops of the list, what you're looking at right now, Aguilar's on there. Myers is on there, of course, but Sterling Shepard, DJ Chark, Randall Cobb, Marvin Jones, Julio Jones, and Lazard will be one. And I'm ranging these in salary wise. But
Sterling Shepard, Chris, I think is not bad, but listen, they could have gotten guys, Chris. Though here's what I don't understand. So the Giants, you
N'Keal Harry's out there too.
Oh yeah, there's a pick. There's a pick. Listen, you basically got the guy from the Giants the job. Belichick got him the job. You had Kadarius Toney, who I loved coming out of the draft. For whatever reason, it didn't work there with him. You could have gotten him, Chris, for nothing. 5th, 6th round pick, you could have got him. He would have been fantastic in the slot here.
Yep.
Where does he end up? Kansas City? Yeah. Really?
What else is new?
So here's my thing, Chris. I don't think Belichick at his age, 71 years old, I don't think he has any clue what to do with that room. Hasn't had any clue for years, as you mentioned.
Forever.
So my question to you is, do you hire an offensive coordinator before the draft, whatever system they're going to run? And does Kraft tell Belichick, that offensive coordinator is drafting a receiver for their system. You're not drafting it. Because you can get receivers, Chris, first, second, third round that end up being number ones in this league. Let the OC pick it, Bill, because you can't pick it. Would Kraft ever do that?
No. Short answer, no.
So you're never getting a receiver here, Chris. You're not getting a receiver here.
Yeah, we're going to elaborate more on that in Coach's Corner. But real quick, Mark, Troy Brown, we're going to talk about that in Coach's Corner too. Stick around.
So, Chris, how would you rate our receiver room? Give him a grade. Who's coming back? What grade do you give him overall? A, B, C, D, F.
The whole room?
The whole room. What's coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I give him a C.
Take Myers, because he's not in the room. He could be his free agent.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're talking Parker, Bourne, and Thornton, C minus?
Yeah. C minus? Okay, yeah. C minus, D. Know? Yeah. Yep.
And do you make a trade? Hopkins is going to be on the trade block. DeAndre Hopkins will be on the trade block. Can you conceivably see them paying? His base salary is about 19, 20 million.
No.
I know it says 27 because that's all bonuses, and that's what Arizona's on the hook for, all that extra money.
No.
But can you see them paying 19
not paying
million?
that much money. No, he's not paying that much money for a receiver. Nope.
Especially a guy coming off a steroid suspension. No. That's been in the league a long time now. That it seriously played like crap against New England when we saw him.
Yeah.
You know,
he's not paying him, Chris.
So unless you can restructure something and you can make that salary more manageable because he's not as marketable as he was before, maybe. Because I still think he's top end talent, but
the last guy last chance they had of getting a top flight guy in here, and it wouldn't have cost them a ton. They would have had to pay him, but it wouldn't have cost you much to pry him out of there, was Diggs. And Diggs wanted to come here and play with Brady, and you didn't do it. Buffalo did it. Brady walks out the door. Diggs wanted to come here and play with Brady.
And you were sick to your stomach when they didn't do that, and the writing was on the wall at that point.
Of course it was.
Let's see what happens offensively. There's a lot. I mean, we went long on offense because it's worth going long on, because that was a huge problem this year. Let's see if it continues to be a huge problem. And stick around for Coach's Corner, because we're going to talk specifically about what coaches should stay and what coaches could go. The offensive breakdown, this portion was presented by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. CorsoLawGroup.com. Allow us to be your voice. Hey, when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion. We're going to flip to the other side of the field, and we're going to talk defense right after this.
It's that time again for a timeout for a message from one of our sponsors. No one ever thinks they will be in the need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Their 20-plus years experience and attention to detail has helped thousands of people all across this great country who found themselves in a situation in Arizona. So whether it's a traffic ticket or if you need reduced DUI or more serious issues, call or go online to CorsoLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help you. Corso Law Group.
Back in with more Pats Nation, the only Patriots postgame show worth watching on Corso and Catone. And Mark, flip it to the defensive side of the ball and breaking this thing down. Look, a lot of positive to me. There's a lot of positive for me in this. But how do you overall see this defense right now? I know it's kind of a loaded question, isn't it?
It is. But so, Chris, they need safeties, right? They need somebody to play the center of the field because McCourty, I think, is done, right? I think he may retire. The center of the field, Chris, linebacking. Again, this is every year we have the same discussion. Linebackers. But Bill's idea of a linebacker in this league, Chris, no longer exists. So if he's not going to get speed in the middle of that field, you got a problem. The defensive line, I think, is fine. Maybe you add a little bit of depth, a couple of depth pieces, maybe. Yep. Right?
Yeah, no, you have to. You have to definitely get some depth in there, Mark, and for sure. And I think, and I'm going to go over as soon as you finish your thought. I'm going to go over with you some of the names that are on the free agent list of people you can try to bring in to plug some of this stuff, because I think you need linebackers in the middle, you need safety help, and maybe some corner help, right?
Yeah. Well, corner, Chris, I think with Jack Jones, Marcus Jones, I think if Mills can stay on the field and be healthy, I think you got a good start there. Jonathan Jones, maybe you bring him back depending on what that number is. You probably need to bring in another corner or two, maybe a veteran or two, and I think you're all right at corner, but. Safety, we talked about McCourty, but linebacker, Chris, oh my God, where do you begin? Okay, so he's going to keep Bentley. He's keeping Bentley. But other than Bentley, what else do you have in that linebacker room, Chris?
Yeah.
In our opinion, not much.
Not much. I mean, you got Wilson. I think he's still – no, Wilson's a free agent.
Wilson's a free agent, and so is the other guy a free agent, McMillan. He's also a free agent too, and those were the two guys you brought in supposedly to have some speed, and they got in the doghouse pretty damn quick. And then the Wilson, other guy that everybody raved about, Chris, that Cameron McGrone left.
Yeah, he's done.
We talked about the practice squad.
Perkins is still an unknown. It's just a bad room. Look, Bentley, he made plays at times. He did. He runs the defense. I get it. He serves his purpose there. And he's okay to have on this team if you bring some other dudes around him, Levante David, those kinds of guys, that can get sideline.
David's going to want money.
Well, so some of the names on the list, that you have here, and I show you this, Jones from Cleveland, average annual salary of $14 million. David for Tampa, average of $12 million. I mean, these guys, David played 1,000 snaps. He had 124 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 quarterbacks. I mean, that's a real inside linebacker, Devin Bush is another guy out of Pittsburgh. Somebody you can look at. Anthony Walker out of Cleveland. Jermaine Edmonds out of Buffalo. These are guys, Denzel Perryman. These are all upgrades from what you have now.
You're going to have to pay Chris probably $10, $12 million to get them.
Yeah, because look, the Patriots are like every other team. Nobody's taking a discount to come to New England anymore. Unless you bring number 12 back. unless you bring him back. Well, I mean, if Kraft, Kraft gets a pass too, doesn't he? Though, I mean, Kraft has been cheap from the beginning with spending. Let's not act like he was spending money the minute he bought he spent tons of money the minute he bought the team. He hasn't had to spend money in 20 years because, he could beat 27th because he had number 12 in the room with Belichick, and you can make something out of nothing. So I don't know. I mean, but this is what you need. These are the guys you need. If you're not going to draft one, then right?
You're going to have to, Chris. If you're not going to draft one, but again, you're keeping Belichick as coach, Chris. And I'm not saying the defense wasn't good this year. It was. But his idea of a linebacker, Chris, no longer exists in this league.
I know.
It don't exist.
I know.
In the last 4 or 5 years, it's become really evident that Belichick is stubborn and his idea of linebackers don't work here. The center of the field, Chris, has been a problem for 4 or 5 years now. And even the last year they won the Super Bowl. You won because you had number 12.
Yep. Yeah. Guy, keep an eye on a guy like I've always been high on this guy, Anzalone, out of when he played for Detroit.
Okay.
He gets 25 million, 2 million roughly a year, 2.5, something like that. So that's another guy.
Those are the types of guys that they look at, Chris.
Well, I mean, I like him. I think he's a speed guy. He's a playmaker. He's got a good motor, and they don't have that. So Mark and safety too. Okay, looking at the I think the corner room's pretty good right now. I don't think you need to prick him up in free agency. I think you can draft if you need it to get some depth. But I think if
Jonathan Jones leaves, you're going to need some depth, right?
Unless you bring,
sure. I mean, because we both agree you don't want to bring Miles Bryant back.
Oh my God. I didn't even want to bring that guy's name up on this friggin' show, Mark. Jeez Christ.
Well, but he's in the room.
He sucks.
He's a restricted free agent. Nobody's signing him.
He's restricted from playing well. So, you know what? No, I mean, I think Marcus Jones, Mills, if he's healthy, Jack Jones, good core.
If Jack Jones is out of the doghouse,
you have to, because you got him on a rookie contract. That's it. But you kick Marcus Jones inside. I think you're okay. Safety though is the problem. Phillips kind of disappeared.
Yeah,
you need something to help Duggar.
And the other kids leave. The other guy, I don't think they'll bring him back unless he comes back for cheap money. Peppers.
Right. Yeah, and he had a better second half than a first half of the season. But
you have nobody, Chris. You have nobody to play McCourty's position in center field.
No. Do you bring a guy like Jordan Poyer in, or are they going to lock him up? Are they going to try to do something with Poyer?
I think the Bills will try to lock him up, but if they don't, I would.
Because he's a guy that would solve. You could put him in. McCourty goes out, and by the way, McCourty, great career, great. He hasn't announced. I don't think he announced yet, but by the time you see the show, it's Saturday night. We're taping on Thursday, so I don't know what he's going to do, but hats off to Devin McCourty and Matthew Slater, Mark.
Yeah, they had great careers. They were great Patriots. They've won championships for us, But listen, it's that time, right? It's time for them to move on and do other things. I'll be shocked if either one of them come back.
So guys to look for in free agency: Jesse Bates, Poyer, Ward, Jimmy Ward out of San Fran, Amos. These are guys. Von Bell. These are some guys that you can look at and bring in that can fill that role. But
what
Mark,
about Ed Reed? Is he a free agent? Ed Reed?
I wish. He probably could play now. But I'll tell you what. We didn't talk about the front because I think they're good. I think they have a great defensive front. I like how they're being coached. And when we get to Coach's Corner right now, we're going to talk after the break. We're going to talk a little bit of Gerard Mayo and Stephen Belichick and what we think may or may not happen. But I think they're well coached. And I think the sky's the limit for this defensive front if they can get some middle help. So you don't have to keep dropping, Judon and Uche into coverage, right? So
yeah, that's something that shouldn't be happening, Chris. But that shows you where we are at linebacker.
And as far as special teams goes, Mark, revamp it. That's all coaching. That is all coaching right there.
That's the worst. That's one of the worst special team units in the league, Chris.
Horrible.
Without question.
Great,
without question.
Good return game. Horrible coverage team. Just undisciplined. And that's all in coaching. And you know what? We're going to get to coaching, and we're going to do that right on the other side of this. This portion of the Pats Nation was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? SpecialSaucePodcast.com. Hey, when we come back, it's going to be interesting. Coach's Corner right after this.
It's the Special Sauce Podcast. You like the song? The sauce is good.
Easy start up is finance. Train them, trust them, and let them lead.
With your host, Marcus Aurelius.
Back in with the Pats Nation and with Corso and Catone. Hey, Mark, we've talked offense, we've talked defense, we've talked about the deficiencies in coaching, right? On the offensive side of the ball, some of the good things in coaching on the defensive side of the ball. Well, now I think we need to get specific. We need to start talking about who these guys are, who's coming in, who's leaving, and our best guess to all of this. Coach's Corner, Joe.
Coach's Corner.
So, Mark, let's start the offensive side of the ball, because that's probably going to take us the longest. And I know, but we do need to talk about Mayo too.
No, absolutely.
And what's going on there? Okay, so it's clear there's changes that need to be made on the offensive side of the ball, not only in the OC, play calling, quarterback coach, offensive line coach, wide receiver coach, all of it. And it's got to start with what? Naming an OC, bringing somebody in that can be in charge.
You have to name an OC. You have to name an OC, Chris. You have to.
So we agree, and everybody out there agrees that Patricia is not the answer. Joe Judge is not the answer. And to his defense, he was dealt a bad hand, man, Patricia. I mean, I don't know how much you can blame him for trying to do the job. Yeah, he was dealt a
bad hand.
So what do they do? What are options? What do you think? And will Belichick do it?
No, I don't think he has a choice, Chris. Based on his conversation with Kraft this week, I think he has to do it. I think that was made perfectly clear.
But is it lip service? Is it just lip service?
No, I don't. I don't believe so, Chris. Because Kraft, Chris, number one, and we've talked about this in the past, is all about image and how he's portrayed. And he didn't look good. He's not looking good right now. And he's also about the bottom line, money. You have another losing season, Chris. Guess what? Maybe you don't. The following year, you don't go to lose. Maybe there's not a sellout when a bad team comes in here. People will stop going to the games. Then what?
You could see it in the letter I got.
Right. So I definitely think he told Bill, you need an offensive coordinator to run this offense. I think that was made perfectly clear to him.
So. But here's the thing. Let me ask you this before we get into Nick candidates.
And I don't necessarily know if I trust him to bring in the right OC.
Right. Well, this is the question, because I mean, you're on record as saying Belichick should be gone. Belichick should be done. I don't think we both know that. Well, that's
you
not
go back
happen.
and forth on that. I know you go back and forth on it, but I firmly believe he should be gone.
Yeah, to me, unless he's willing to smell the road, like wake up and get some smelling salts. Look, the bottom line is this, Mark. Is he giving? Okay, the question I had for you is he giving Kraft lip service in this sense? Because Belichick's going to take his time. He's going to survey.
Well, I don't think you can allow him to take his time as the owner.
Well, that's what I want to know about, between the lines of really what went on in that meeting. I got what Curran said, and I see it's accurate. Belichick didn't have to be convinced that it's a problem. Okay, he doesn't have to be convinced that it's a problem. Yeah, Mr. Kraft, I realize that this was not good. We're going to do what we need to do to fix it. We're going to take our time, and we're going to make sure we make the right choice this time. In the meantime, Kingsbury goes away. O'Brien goes away, because O'Brien's being looked at by different teams right now too.
Yep.
Okay. And O'Brien, and from what I understand, his phone hasn't rang yet from the Patriots.
No.
So does he do this whole dog and pony show where he's like, yeah, I know, Bob, we got to fix things.
Maybe.
We're going to change things, and then does nothing, and then it's too late. What do you think?
And then he says, well, we got to stick with what we got because I couldn't get anybody.
Yeah, I tried, Bob.
I tried, Bob. I don't think so. I think Bob, I think, Chris, if Bob has any integrity left and has anything left, he gave him a timeline and said, listen, you need to fix this before the draft. I hope that was the conversation, but I don't know, Chris, anymore. I don't know.
He better fix it long before free agency comes, because the coach is going to be gone in about 3 weeks.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen before free. When is free agency? Do we have a date for that? March. It's March, right?
It's usually the first week of March, something like that. Yeah, first, second week. So
I don't
before
think
the combine,
I don't think an OC will be here before then. I don't think.
Well, so you're not going to have one for the combine then? Perfect.
Probably not.
And by the way, the Patriots are coaching in the Shrine game, the East-West. They're coaching in that game, whatever the hell that means. So that's their way of getting a look at people. I mean, Ted Johnson was on earlier this week, and I heard him talking about, Bill's maybe too old. Maybe he's just worn down is to do the things he used to do. He used to turn over every rock. He'd show up. Ted Johnson said he saw him at the combine, and he took him aside and asked him a bunch of questions on his own. He said he's not doing that now. No. He's not putting in that kind of effort now, Bill. So to your point, Mark, maybe he is done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Chris, I think it was time to move on. But listen.
Okay, so talk about candidates. Let's talk about two guys. Let's talk about O'Brien. Let's talk about Kingsbury.
O'Brien, and you already mentioned Kingsbury, right? The other thing you could do, Chris, is you look around the league and you look at McVay's staff. You look at the guy from San Francisco's staff, right?
Shanahan,
Shanahan. You look at those guys. You look at Andy Reid's staff over there with right?
The enemy,
right? I don't think the enemy would leave, but there's guys that are involved in that maybe the QB coach or one of those types of guys who's young, smart, innovative. They've learned from McVay. They've learned from Shanahan. Maybe one of those guys you bring in and have a conversation and say, hey, what do you think? And because you need somebody with young ideas and blood who understands, Chris, listen, I talked about this last night with you. Okay, so I'm going to use our wide receivers as an example. And I know you brought up during the year an example of Thornton. He can't tap the toe tap. It drove you crazy. I don't think you need the toe tap anymore in this league, Chris. These other teams are running double screens, illegal or not. They're running picks, and they're getting these guys with 4.2 speed open in space and letting them run with the ball. We have no clue how to do that. No clue.
Yeah,
I don't know if Thornton's any good, Chris. He could be a bum. I don't know if he's any good, but I know he's got 4.2 speed, and you didn't get him in the ball in space at all.
I hate the fact that you say that about the toe touching doesn't need to happen. You see plays made every damn week by these number ones by doing that stuff.
By Jamar Chase, by Diggs, but the majority of the receivers, Chris, they're in space and they're not tapping their toes anymore. But Belichick, and they don't know how to get those guys they don't know how to get Thornton the ball in space.
No, I get it, but once again, you're taking a frigging guy that is less than you should have taken in the draft, and now you're saying let's fit the square peg into a round. Let's just do what he can do.
Well. No, I'm saying you need to develop an offense, Chris, that involves speed. I'm not saying it's Thornton. They wouldn't know what to do with Tariq Hill over here. Yeah. They wouldn't know what to do with Tariq Hill.
That's a fair point. I get that.
What are they going to do?
So then it never gets better. So if he's not willing to relinquish any type of control to an offensive guy that can bring some of these guys in, then it never improves. Then, Bill's got to go.
Chris, something's got to give, right? Something has to give. And I don't know what it is. But so as an OC, what do you think? Who do you bring in?
I mean, I would rather have O'Brien right now because listen, let me say that. I'd rather have a young coach, that's maybe not even a name, a smart guy that can call plays, that understands offense, that can bury his face and be a nerd. I want a nerd. That's what I'm looking for. A nerd to coach the offense that's going to get the kind of guys he wants to get. That's what I'm looking for. But that's not going to happen. So yeah, O'Brien, I think, but Kingsbury's an option.
I know you love that guy from Miami. You were telling me how much you loved him the other day.
He irritates me, that guy. But he's a smart offensive guy. So again, to me,
Chris.
Kingsbury, that kind of guy because they don't have to pay him. Arizona's still going to pay him.
Yes.
But he runs an air raid. It's a third offense to learn now for Mac Jones.
Well, if you bring in a guy like that, Chris, you're going to have to let him go into the draft and draft new receivers because you don't have the receivers to run that offense.
If you're going to stay with Belichick, Billy O'Brien's the call because Belichick will listen to him. Mac Jones has a small relationship with him already, and he's respected.
Yep.
To me. So
okay.
That's what I think on the offensive side. And Mark, flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, let's talk about Gerard Mayo.
Quickly, receivers. Yeah. Do you keep Troy Brown as the coach? Okay.
No, I think Troy Brown's. I love Troy Brown, but I don't think he's a good coach. No, I think every damn position needs to be changed.
Okay.
Offensive line. If you want to put Matt Patricia on offensive line, coach the O-line, fine. I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that. If you want to take Joe Judge and make him the special teams coordinator, I have no problem with that. Go ahead and do that because they're not going to fire these guys. No. They'll reassign them.
Defense.
Okay, defense. Talk about Gerard Mayo. Are we losing him?
I think he's getting interviewed for head coaching jobs, Chris. I don't necessarily know if he'll get a head coaching job, but I think you lose him to a team that's willing to give him the title of defensive coordinator. That's probably more realistic. I don't think he's ready to be a head coach, but if somebody gives him the title DC, I think he's gone. And what does that mean for Belichick? Does that make Belichick look bad?
Of course. And then, by the way, Carolina has asked permission to speak to him. Now,
as
by
head
the time
coach?
our show, as head coach, by the time our show airs, I don't know what will have happened, but they're moving pretty quick on Gerard Mayo. So if you lose Mayo to a head coaching job, that bails Belichick out, doesn't it? Why? Why does that bail him out?
Absolutely it does, because listen, we did not make him the DC. He moved on for a head coaching job. He can't be the head coach here because Belichick's the coach.
Because who's blocking? Who's blocking Mayo? Yep.
The son.
He's blocking Mayo from being the DC here. What are you going to do? You're going to name him over Steve Belichick? Mark, the best scenario for the Patriots is if Mayo doesn't get a head coaching, is he becomes the DC and Belichick moves on to another team. The kid.
He's not going to.
It's better for him.
No, I know it is, but he's not going to.
Spread your wings and fly. You're always going to be under your father's umbrella. That would be the best for New England. You're right. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So
what about the defensive line coach, Chris? You mentioned you were happy with the defensive line. Who was the defensive line coach for people out there?
I don't have his name. I don't. I had the list of coaches' names, and I'm not gonna act like I know every damn coach's name on the roster. Of course you would call me out on that one. Naturally.
But you're happy with the D-line coach.
Yeah.
And the
D-line.
I mean,
I'm happy with everything that's going on defense right now. I am. I really am. Except for the inside linebackers, which is, by the way, Mayo. But no, I'm happy with what's going on defense. I just feel like we're going to lose Mayo to a head coaching job prematurely. I don't think Mayo's ready to be a head coach yet, but I think they're going to lose.
I don't think he is. I don't think he is either. I don't think he is.
So, and of course, you got to get rid of the special teams coach, Mark.
You think?
He sucks.
Well, he might be, Chris, the one coach that you do fire. Like, I think guys like Judge and Patricia, you're going to repurpose them, but I think you have to get rid of the special teams coach, and then if you did that, you could, like you said, you could always put Joe Judge back as special teams because he was good at that.
Well, and let's not forget, everyone, before Belichick goes and decides, hey, Bill O'Brien, I want you're the OC of this game. You can't do it that way. You're subject to the Rooney Rule, and you got to interview. And I don't think Belichick this is not had to do with race. Belichick doesn't like to be told what to do.
No, he doesn't.
As it relates to running.
So
that's
team. That's a problem. That's a problem.
It has nothing to do with him hiring an African American or anybody else. It's got to do with the fact he doesn't like to be told what to do.
My final thing with all of this
or pay him,
is the draft. And what do you do about? And I know we're going to get into this in future shows.
Yep.
What do we do about the draft? Corso and Catone need to run the draft room.
You need somebody who knows what the hell they're doing, a player personnel guy that can draft like Pioli used to do, Dimitrov, these guys.
Like we do.
Like we do. We need you need us. You need us over there spitting and drooling on ourselves in the freaking coaches' room, in the war room. And you know what?
Wait a minute, though. Although you like the N'Keal Harry pick, I'm just going to throw it out there.
You know what? You're never gonna live. You know, I could have like 10,000 good ones, and the fact that I was okay, it wasn't I liked it. I was like, I'm all right with it. I don't have a problem with it. Okay. Now all of a sudden he's the guru. You also like the Thornton pick. Let's see how that turns out.
I did. I like the Thornton pick. Let's see how it turns out. You are right.
He's already been a hell of a lot more productive than N'Keal Harry. So Mark, we both agree there's a lot of changes coming for the Patriots. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. Free agency is going to be starting the combine, so they better get their friggin' coaching room in order and know who their quarterback's going to be moving forward. So that's our season wrap up for.
Listen, early prediction: 2000. This next season will be the last season in New England for Mac Jones and Bill Belichick.
There you go. You heard it here first on Corso Catone. That's our season wrap up. It was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? SpecialSaucePodcast.com. Hey, listen, get on all week long. Watch, listen. All of our shows are up for you to do that. And make sure you're subscribing, following us, hitting those little arrows and thumbs up and all that other stuff that tells us that you're engaged. And make sure you give us a call on Heated Hotline and come back next week. 7 p.m. Eastern for Corso and Catone. We're going to talk Bruins. We're going to talk Celtics. We're going to talk about those fantastic seasons that they're having right now. And, of course, Catone's comments. You never want to miss that. Right, Mark?
Oh, no.
And we're going to have your calls in Heated Hotline. So make sure you keep giving us a call and giving us your thoughts. Anything you bring to the table, we'll be ready for it. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. See you next Saturday.
Find Corso and Catone on iHeartRadio, iTunes, or wherever you podcast. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, Corso and Catone, and catch the chaos at 7 p.m. on Saturday.